Good morning. My name is Steve Weber, and I am the host of the American Gumption Morning Show, being broadcast on Spirituality Gone Wild and also on the American Gumption Facebook page and the American Gumption YouTube channel. So please subscribe to one or all of those so you never miss an episode. We typically broadcast Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on the East Coast, and that's 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on the West Coast. So, anyway, I had a great weekend. I took Friday off. I did not do a live show on Friday, and that gave me an extra day to do some other projects that I had been planning to do or needing to do, I should say. And it was a great time. So beautiful weather out here on the East. It's finally, it really feels like fall. Tomorrow is the official first day of fall, and it's a nice time of year when the air has a little bit of crispness in the morning. So anyway, that's the weather report from back east. All right, so it's Monday, September 21st, and I got a great week planned. I have guests scheduled for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and a couple that I'm hoping will come in on Thursday, Friday, but the intent is to do 5 broadcasts this week with guests each day. So we'll see how that works out. Certainly the next couple days, we've got some great guests coming up. Today, Tracy Klinkroth is going to be joining us, and I met Tracy just about 2 months ago. We first were introduced to each other. I'll tell that story and share. But Tracy has some kind of a similar vision to what I'm doing. My goal was to travel about the U.S., and she is actually doing it. She's launching her RV 1-year expedition, The Power of She, in the next couple of weeks. So this is going to be, the intro to Tracy and what she's doing. And the intention is that she'll join us on a regular basis and fill us in on where she's at, what her travels are all about, and what she's doing. So that's coming up in just a few minutes. All righty. My monologue is going to be called "Let's Go for a Little Drive." Coincidentally, let's go for a little drive. All right, and I've got a movie life lesson that kind of kicks it off, and then I have a Volkswagen commercial that I was the star in back in 2008. And so I'm going to play that in just a minute. So just let me let you know what's happening the next couple of days. Tomorrow, Natalie Coleman. Natalie was with us last Wednesday, and Natalie shared her story of recovery. And 5 years ago, she was at the dark night of the soul moment, and she ended up sharing last Wednesday the whole story of how that transpired. We had intended to get into some, what recovery means for her and how her life how she went from darkness to lightness. Anyway, we spent most of last Wednesday really going through laying the foundation of how she got to that moment in time and how family and friends, loved ones stepped in and helped her. So tomorrow, what we're going to do is continue the story, but now we're going to be talking about the joy and the love and her purpose, in that a newfound purpose that her life has been really reborn. So anyway, that'll happen tomorrow. And then Wednesday, Michaela Lev, who is the founder of the G-Fest Goddess Festival, which will be an online event from October 16th through the 18th. She's going to join us, and she's going to share what that's all about. That's going to be on Wednesday. All righty. So I had mentioned that I'm going to do a movie life lesson. Let's go ahead and make that happen here. I think I have a new system for sharing these videos. So let's just see if it indeed works. Oops, that's not actually what I want to change one screen here. Here it is. All right, let's see if this works the way I'm hoping. And this will be the answer to why I've had trouble streaming these life lessons on here. Let's see how this works. Moving to Beat the Blues. Hi, I'm Steve Weber, and here is scene number 3 of the 94 best scenes and life lessons from the movie Forrest Gump. I've created this video series to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the movie this year in 2019. When you're feeling blue, get up and move, go for a little run. Forrest could only sit around and feel sorry for himself for so long. Jenny was gone. He had spent the morning moping and sitting and thinking and no doubt feeling sorry for himself. When he stood up from the rocking chair on the porch and walked down the steps and started a slow jog across the lawn and finally a full hard run, he knew he had to start moving if he was going to shake free of the sadness he was feeling.
That day, for no particular reason, I decided to go for a little run.
He knew that some good hard activity and movement would help him feel better. Forrest decided to go for a little run. If you want to beat the blues, get moving. It takes gumption to snap yourself out of a funk. Gumption and movement to beat the blues. Do you want to be more Gump-like? Get moving. Let motion help you snap out of a funk or beat the blues. Go for a walk or go for a little run. Let's learn to live our lives with gumption. All righty, yeah. So that was the number 3 best scene from the movie Forrest Gump that I had put out last year during the 25th anniversary, and I decided that scene, really was well, it was number 3. It's a great moment when Forrest stood up, and in his case, he wanted to beat the blues. He was feeling, sorry for himself, and he was just sitting around moping for a few days, and he got up and took action. That same kind of action could be useful for, if you're not feeling blue or you're just feeling stuck, just take some action, and usually that will happen. A year ago, when I decided to leave Montana and travel about in the United States, I was the part of the decision, or the decision was I needed to take some action. I needed to leave Montana. The work that I had needed to do in Montana, or the reason that I went to Montana, had come to its end. And so suddenly I needed to get up and go and take some, go for a little drive, as they say. So I decided to go ahead and take a drive around the country. Now, that hasn't happened yet. We're still, we've launched the American Gumption tour virtually, but the intention in the next few months is get out there and go. So, and I'm going to take inspiration from our guest today, Tracy, who is actually doing that. So she's leaving early next month. So we're going to watch and see how that goes for her. Now, I have, along that same line, I have something I want to share with you. And this is a Volkswagen commercial that I starred in 2008. And I'll tell you about the commercial after we let it air. All right, let's play this. One day, I decided to take a drive to the city. And after I got to the city, I decided to drive through the whole city. And after I drove through the whole city, I decided to drive to the state. I ended up driving to the end of the road. When I got there, I decided to turn back and keep driving. And when I got to the end of the other road, I thought, why not turn around and keep driving? All I could think about was to drive and drive.
And you just couldn't stop driving?
No. Many people couldn't understand why someone would drive so much. But others, they identified with it, and they ended up joining me.
One day, someone said I gave hope to people. I just drove and drove. It never occurred to me to stop. And that's all I have to say about that.
Novo Golf, pelo prazer de dirigir.
Alrighty, that's that was the Volkswagen commercial that I did back in 2008 for Volkswagen.
There's a huge fundraising deadline coming up.
And let's see, let me turn off one. Let me turn this off. Sorry about that. There we go.
From now.
All right, there we go. That should take care of that. So in 2008, I did a Volkswagen commercial that aired in Brazil. And the idea was that Forrest Gump went for a little drive. And I went down to Uruguay, Montevideo, and that's where I ended up filming this commercial. And there was a crew, there was like 8 or 9 or 10 vehicles with light. I mean, it was a full-blown production, and we traveled all around that country, and we filmed scene after scene after scene. They had a famous director who ended up making this for Volkswagen, and I don't know, they must have spent $500,000 just on the production, or whatever they spent. I don't know, but it was like a movie, and I was on this thing for 4 days and filming and going from place to place, and quite the adventure. So now I'm thinking back on that, and that was part of the seed that was planted in my mind that I was going to go for a little drive. And here I am all these years later, planning to go for my own little drive. So that's really what I just wanted to mention about the RV portion. And let's see if I can throw up this one other. There we go. So I decided that I would create RV Gumption, and I would travel about the country, and I would share the story of what I'm planning to do. But also really what I would do is I would interview people, ordinary people who were doing extraordinary things. And the way the idea came about was that I was watching the news one day, and all the news was all about negative, bad news, people fighting, people disagreeing, and the politicians doing kind of the same thing, all sound bites, no actual conversation, no actual real conversation was going on. It was just like voices shouting at each other. And I thought, gee, there has to be a better way. And everybody that I met and knew in my daily life when I was in Montana, none of that was important. All the stuff that the news was talking about had no relevance on our lives on a day in and day out basis. It was just like, it's like two different worlds, and yet we go home and we watch that as if it's important. So I thought, why not take American Gumption, take it out on the road and tell happy stories, tell good stories, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that's all of us. That's you, that's me, that's every one of us is that person. And the way that our news had evolved over the last, decade or even longer is that it became kind of like this, propaganda or news that really wasn't relevant to any of our lives. And so I thought, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, that became my mission. And I was going to go out and share that. So that's still the intention. Now I'm doing that virtually for the time being. And so the American Gumption Morning Show launched a few months ago. And of course, a month before that, I met Debbie G from Spirituality Gone Wild. And I wasn't quite ready to be in the RV traveling. COVID sort of slowed that down a bit. And there were other factors. And so I thought, hey, let's just launch this virtually. So I did that. And then I told people what I'm going to do. And there are no coincidences. We're all connected. A friend of mine, Lauren Archer, she knew the story of what I was intending to do. And she knew our guest who's coming up, Tracy Klinkroth, who is also doing something. And Lauren sent a message to Tracy and I and introduced us and said, Steve, you have to meet Tracy and know what she's doing, and vice versa. And so we spoke, and I remember we spoke the week before I actually did my first week of broadcast. So I hadn't even started the show, and Tracy and I talked, and I said, "What are you going to do?" And she told me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we kind of have a similar idea." But I'm going to let Tracy tell you all about that. So the point is that there are no coincidences. We're all connected, and we're all doing work that matters to each and every one of us. And so when Forrest was on the bench and was feeling stuck, and had, in his case, he had the blues over Jenny leaving. He got up and he went for a run, and he ran for 3 years, 2 months, 14 days, and 16 hours. My intention is to drive for 4 to 7 years, is what I'm saying. I figure it's going to be it's going to be the better part of a decade, out there doing this project. I don't know how long that will last or what, but that is sort of the time frame and the vision that I had. So a little longer than Forrest. And Tracy is committed to going out and doing this for a year. And so that's, it doesn't matter the time, the amount that you do it. It's just like, sometimes we just have to get up and go, and we have to go do our thing. So that's really all I wanted to say about, getting up and going for a little drive. And I thought it was great that I was able to show the one movie scene of Forrest getting up and showing the video clip of the Volkswagen commercial. I hadn't shared that yet on the American Gumption show, and it's kind of a cute thing. And here it was. I did that fun thing all those years ago, and now I get to share it with y'all. So anyway, and again, I'll mention that that event in my life, let's go for a little drive. That's kind of what I'm doing now. So these seeds, the law of attraction, they get planted, and it takes, in this case, 12 years later, here it is. I'm getting ready to go for a little drive. But let's, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring our guest on. She is in the green room. It looks like I hope they've been taking good care of you. All of the American Gumption Morning Show guests, making you feel comfortable, giving you some coffee. You had to get up early because you are on the West Coast, and so anyway, let's welcome and bring Tracy on. Hello there, Tracy. Welcome to the American Morning Show.
Good morning. It is early here, at least for me. I'm a late owl. I'm a night owl and a late riser. But for you, I'll get up at 7 a.m.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you decided to join us this morning. And so the way this works, Tracy, is I have a little bio and intro that I want to read about who you are. And then we have what we call our first-time guest welcoming theme song. So the first time you are a guest on the show, you'll get played this special thing. And the intention is that you'll become a regular guest as you travel around. Yeah. So we might have to make your own theme song, but
that idea.
We'll cross that bridge as we get a little bit closer to that. But so today we're going to play the first-time guest theme song. But let me tell people a little bit about who you are. So Tracy Klinkroth is a serial entrepreneur who has founded several companies in the market research and event planning spaces. Epiphany Research focused on B2B research. And that was, I believe, the first thing that she really did, or one of the major things. And then Chick Chat was a spinoff, and that was to address specifically the female consumers market. And then there was Epiphany Events to create eclectic and memorable events and parties. So you are an organizer and a party thrower. So I like that. And then finally, now, just about 2 years ago, you came up with the idea of the power of she, and that is to promote and market women-owned businesses. And that's what we're going to primarily talk about over the next year as you do your travels. So the power of she is a community and movement whose mission is to discover, buy from, promote, and share the stories of women-owned businesses. An additional purpose is to educate and encourage consumers to buy more from women as a way to shrink the gender gap. That's right. We have the power of making decisions and where we spend our money. That's going to influence and change the way businesses operate. So we have the power to make things happen. So Tracy will travel the U.S. in 2021 in a Power of She branded RV that we might have a picture or two to share with people. And she's going to discover, buy from, promote, and interview women-owned business owners. Tracy is going to encourage consumers to buy more from women business owners as a way to shrink the gender gap. So Tracy Klinkroth, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Well, thank you, Steve, for having me. We're kindred spirits, right? As you shared with the audience that we were introduced by a mutual friend, and because she thought we should know each other because we have similar take to the road and just speak to normal everyday people, like you said. What did you say? Everyday people doing extraordinary things.
Yeah, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Yeah. So, well, let's get into that, but let's first play your the first time guest welcoming theme.
Very cute.
Have you ever been on a show where there was a marching band that welcomed you to the show?
No, I'd say this is the first time for me.
Well, very good. We like to try to make people feel welcome, especially the first time they come and join us. So welcome.
Thank you.
So I was thinking, we're going to talk a lot about the power of she over the next year as you travel about, and I want to certainly frame that. But I thought a good place to start would be, who have you been the last several years, and how did you get to that point where a year or two ago, that seed got planted in your mind and you decided to go out on the road. So just kind of give us a background and bring us up to kind of so that we know how you arrived at this moment in time.
Okay, great. Well, I have been self-employed for 22 years. So I kind of make my own hours, make my own time, have the freedom to actually travel up until this year. That was the reason for doing that. My background has been, as you introduced me, in market research. And then later on, probably about 15 years ago, I started doing more event planning and party throwing. And that was a result of, it was actually the result of going to Italy and falling in love with Venice. And then I decided to come back and host a Venetian masquerade ball in Seattle. And because I've always been doing research throughout the years, the majority of my clients wanted to hear from women. Women make the majority of the purchase decisions in the household. So that's why I decided to spin off Chick Chat. And because of that, I just started doing live events, networking, social events with women. And 2 years ago, as you said, launched The Power of She with good intentions of that. Well, The Power of She was Chick Chat's tagline for about 6 years prior. And I had watched a TED Talk of a couple that had attempted to purchase or did purchase only from Black-owned businesses for an entire year. So it made me wonder if anybody had ever done that with women-owned businesses. And I couldn't find anything. And so then I decided to try to do that myself. I lasted about 2 months. It was very difficult. I didn't do the research that I should have done up front so that I was prepared. There is not a lot of food items to buy from women-owned businesses unless I wanted to eat a lot of chocolate and cupcakes and various things. It's really hard to go to the grocery store and find items made by women. And like you said, I think you left, when you made that commercial in 2008, that was really what kind of gave you started the spark for you wanting to go out on the road too and do your thing. I found notes of my own that 9 years ago, I've been talking about some kind of road show or road tour. And it's just, I don't know about you, but every year, all the time, I would just be adding notes to it. I'd be researching, I'd be dreaming. And then, as we all know, COVID hit, and not really a great time to be planning events. I have to add that my companies had kind of shifted. I had shifted from doing mostly market research to doing more, getting my income mostly from events and parties and event planning. And yeah, 2020 hit, and there's really no events to be able to be do this year. So I said, why not, why not take off and do this thing that I wanted to do? Yes, it's a pandemic. Yes, we have to figure out how to talk to and interview and meet people in a safe way. But I figured no time like the present. So that's how we got to today.
So the road trip idea only came about at the beginning of this year as things shut down, and you said that you had ideas of it. So the seed was planted years ago, but you never, but the actual going up and doing it kind of firmed up this year. Is that correct?
Correct. I've been thinking about it for 9 years or so. I thought I was going to do it in 2016 because that was, Hillary Clinton was running for president, power she, right? That didn't happen. I started getting busy and doing other things. I got to tell you, there's just a lot of fear also about completely changing your life and going out on the road and facing all of these unknowns. You can plan as much as you can plan. And that's the good and bad part, right? The unknowns are the good and bad part.
Yeah, though there's it was, as we talked 2 months ago when we first met, and then last week when we talked about getting together today. Some of the conversation we had was figuring out just logistically, how does this work? How does that work? And so I'm sure we'll share some of those stories as you go out there, because you're actually in some way, I planned to do this a year ago and still haven't done it. And yet you kind of just now are making it happen. And so you're actually going to be out there doing it ahead of me, which, so I'm going to lean on you and say, Tracy, how do you do that? What happens when this happens?
You can learn from my mistakes, right? We have to learn everything, not just the interviewing process in terms of how to do that socially distanced and in a correct way, but also how to drive an RV, how to dump the gray water and the black water, the electricity, all these things. We have to learn a lot at the same time, right? So I will be leaving sometime in October. I'm renovating a 2001 Dutchman Express RV, and it's taken a lot longer and a lot more money than I thought. But I'll be leaving sometime in October and just kind of doing I want to go see my parents in New York and stay with them for a couple of months. But I will be using October to kind of do a dry run or a dress rehearsal in terms of I will be interviewing several women during that month, and then using November and December to edit that video and really try to launch the brand at the end of this year, next year.
One of the things from my monologue that I wanted to share, and I forgot to, so I'm going to just interject it now, because you talked about learning how to drive the RV, learning how to, take care of the gray water, the black water, all the logistical things that living in our homes or our apartments or our condos. I mean, we don't have to worry about any of those things. So suddenly there's a whole new set of skills that we need to learn. And what I wanted to share earlier was that there's many people out there in the RV space. If you go to YouTube, there's people who have, pretty good followings of how to do this, how to do these different things. And so I know you plan to share what you're doing on YouTube, and I plan to share what I'm doing on YouTube. And I've come to the conclusion that I don't want to necessarily become one of the people who talks about like how do you hook up the tanks and how do you do all that. But rather, what if like what if there's a movement of people? So right now there's 2 of us, but what if there's probably more that we just don't know of, but what if there's 4 or 6 or 20 or 50 people who are traveling around doing certain things? And, maybe the American Gumption and the RV Gumption portion of that becomes the avenue for the people who are doing those interviews to kind of, share what their different stories and different styles and different communities are. And so I thought it's just kind of neat. So I was grateful when our mutual friend introduced us, because it really was the same story. I mean, it's like,
Yes.
we go out and travel about. And who in the right mind does this, Tracy?
Well, you do have to be a little crazy, but I think that the crazy ones are the ones that change the world, right? So,
Yeah.
And like you, I think there is. I mean, I definitely have the goal of discovering and introducing the world, the country, to these amazing women business owners. We're referring to them as she's superhero entrepreneurs. So that you can not only potentially buy their product or service, but also just get inspired by their stories. Because what you said earlier, I think there is so much divisiveness right now in our country, and we're in an election year. And yeah, I think we do need to hear more stories of just ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So.
Yeah, no, that's just great. I'm gonna, we will watch you as you do your little dry run. We said, hey, let's have you come back when you're on the road after October and you leave, and then after you get to New York and you're with family. And I'd like to just throw this in. It's a little bit of a curveball. I'm staying with family right now. I'm staying with my older sister and her husband, and our 91-year-old father has an apartment attached to the house. And so he moved in here a year ago, and I'm living upstairs where the kids used to live, the guest bedrooms. And so we all kind of have our own space, and that's great. But being with family after 40 years of being out in California and Montana, and then being back, has been very healthy for me and therapeutic. And there's a certain amount of closure that needed to be cleaned up in my life. There was, family dynamics, things that you go back and visit with people, and the things trigger you. And ultimately, for me, it became, I was behaving, or I was reacting, I should say, like a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old boy who wanted to be independent and be a man. And yet when family would say certain things, I'd feel like I was being scolded as a 16 or 18-year-old. And so this opportunity has been that for me. And I would hope, and I would think that there's going to be some kind of, opportunity for you to spend some time with your parents and, just, make peace with, things that, you've carried with you for, many, many years. So I don't know if you thought about that, but my hope is that you accomplish that.
Yeah, everything that you just said. I mean, I do revert back to a 16-year-old girl as well. Because I usually go home for the past many years. I mean, decades probably. I see my parents about 2 months out of the year anyway. So for extended periods of time, it's usually 2 visits of, a month long. So there's beauty in that. And then there's also, right, old patterns and feeling like the teenager who has to rebel again. And like, I know that, Dad, you know, that kind of stuff. But I luckily have had those conversations with my parents long ago in terms of clearing anything that needed to be cleared. And we just have, not that we don't get into our scuttles and we have little fights for sure, because we're all very opinionated and very passionate. My parents are 89, so I love that you're spending time with your 91-year-old dad. But this has been really hard for me. I haven't seen them in a year. Like I said, I usually see them twice a year. And so I'm really glad to just go back and be able to spend, you know, quality time with them over the holidays. And yeah, family and friends are everything for me. So.
All righty. Well, good. Well, good luck with that. And we'll check in with you and
yeah,
see.
I'm excited to show you. Well, you can check out the fact I did post on my Facebook page the first time that I emptied I refer to it as gray water, but I think it was the black water. And that was quite an experience. And I will not make that mistake again if the way that it was done. So this is going to be a year of firsts. And when you go out on the road too, we're both going to find, you know, we screw up things. And then from screwing up things, that's how you learn. So.
Back in March, I had a 2-week kind of dry run, and I was actually on the road when COVID finally sent everybody home. Yeah. And I was only a week into my 2 weeks when everybody that I was with scrambled and left. And so then I had like a week to kind of just, you know, hang out and learn some of the driving around things and doing that without the extra challenge of you know, interacting with a bigger group of people and doing some work that I was supposed to be doing. Anyway, the point is that I learned how to empty the tanks and to do the different things, and it's an experience. It's an adventure, and so anyway,
yeah.
Well, good.
I'll share all the trials and tribulations of living in a 20. I have a 23 footer. What do you want to? Do you have ideas of what you want to get out there in? Oh, there she is.
Yes, I do. And this is a good transition to that. So this is the RV. It's a Class C. This is the one that you are planning to go out in, but there's a little bit of a backstory in that you purchased one RV. So when the very first time we talked in July, you said, I own 2 RVs. So tell us the story how you owned 0 RVs and then you own 2 RVs.
I know, right? I have a side business. No. Well, one of my biggest fears or areas of anxiety was actually driving an RV. I drive a Prius. I've never driven anything bigger, right? So, although I'm a researcher, I actually do very little research on things myself. It's interesting. But I researched enough and I just felt like, okay, I want a 21 footer. I want a 21 footer. I want a 21 footer. Most of the RVs as you know, I think you probably know, everybody wants an RV now because of COVID. So they're flying off the lots and it's really hard to find a used one. I didn't have the budget to be able to buy a new one. That would have been nice. And so I finally, you know, you get on OfferUp, you get on Facebook Marketplace, and I found it. It was up at like 3:00 in the morning one morning. I found a 21 footer and I was like, oh my gosh. And I gave the guy my number and I need to come see it. And so I, you know, rushed there the next day, and he was a little bit of, I had to admit, like a little bit of a used car salesman, you know what I mean? And it was in great shape. It was cute. It seemed to run well, what little bit I knew to check on an RV. And he was kind of saying, you know, I've got lots of people who want to look at it, which I know was probably true because of how everybody wants an RV. So I bought it and I drove it home and I'm sitting in it and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, because you mentioned about YouTube. I've watched so many YouTube videos of people renovating their RV and I'm like, oh my God, that looks like so much fun. And so I was looking around like, I think this is going to be too small for me to live in for a year plus, right? So then I had previously looked at the one that you just showed, which is a 23 footer with a slide out. And I went back to that dealer and I hadn't driven it yet. And I actually drove it. And I'm like, oh, I think I want to buy this one. So I put a little bit of money down and then I had to sell the first one, which was a mini Winnebago. And that was, I've learned about titles and quick titles and register. Yeah, all that stuff that I didn't necessarily want to know. So it was a little painful. I finally just sold it to an amazing, cute, adorable little couple, and they're leaving, I think, this week to go out on their adventure. They're both in tech, and they're going to go to Kansas, where she's from. And so everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing the RV thing. So now I'm just the proud owner of one RV.
Very good. Well, and I remember when we reconnected last week, you said, I just sold the 21 footer for the third time. So I said, well, I guess the first and second time didn't work out, but anyway, it's moved on to the rightful owners, the new owners. Very good. Congratulations. All right. Well, let me share the screen, and let's talk about this 23 footer. And here's the other side of it. Let's see. I'll show you. This is the other side with the slide out. So just tell us a little bit about what the inside is like and why you think this is your ideal home for the next year.
Yeah. Well, you'll notice too that there's no decals, there's no vinyl on the side. So if you went back to the first picture where it has, I think it has Dutchman Express on it, and the typical little stripes that they like to put on it.
Yep.
Yeah. I had to take all of those off, and I still have to do that on the top of the other side. So I didn't know how to do that until I started researching it. And so they come up with a hot gun and some really crazy liquid that it comes off. So anyway, I had to take them off because it's getting wrapped, branded The Power of She. And unbeknownst to me, something again you learn, I didn't realize that you had to take all of those vinyl off, otherwise they would show through on the wrap. I decided to rip out the couch. Actually,
Here's the wrap that you have, and so this shows both sides of what that looks like. Now it's not wrapped yet, and then I have another picture which shows kind of the front and the back, and even on the top, you're going to have that big Power of She on the top, so that when a helicopter flies over, it can identify you. Is that correct?
Exactly. Or my drone, or my designer said, when you go into larger cities, and if people are, looking down. So, yeah.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And then of course, here's the side. Now, how did this wrap come about? Did you dream it up, or you said you're a designer? How did you, come up with the scheme for it?
So I've been working with the same very talented designer for probably over a decade, and it is not a woman. It happens to be a man. He's amazing. It's a woman-owned business in that he and his wife are in business together. He just is an amazing designer. He gets me, he gets my personality and what I'm trying to accomplish with this. And we've just always used a lot of this kind of watercolor-y kind of brush strokes that you see on the front and the back. And the colors, I did say I love that fuchsia color. Mm-hmm. And because I want to be noticed, right? Why do this if you're not going to be noticed? And I think that's a pretty noticeable RV coming down the road. So there's a few things that are going to change. Some of the verbiage is going to change. We're working on that now, but for the most part, this is the branding.
Well, that looks great. Yes, and I agree. It's important to be noticed. And you had asked me about what I intend to do, and I'm going to get to that too. But I want to make sure that we get back to this beautiful white. Here's the side that's now all cleaned off. Well, there might be one or two logos on there, but that's going to get wrapped up and colored into the wrap that you have. But apparently there was one little problem that you ran into, and I'm going to show a picture to kind of, this is what the problem was.
So, yeah.
What happened?
Well, the problem was watching all those YouTube videos about renovating your RV. That's one problem. No, but you see there the really ugly couch. That was a sleeper sofa. But oh my gosh, it was like this thick. It was awful. And I don't know about you, but I just do not like the interior of most RVs, particularly older RVs. They're just ugly and dated. And so you see all that wood there. We took out over the front portion, which goes over the driver's and passenger seat. That's typically where you have a bed, but in this one, there's an entertainment center, and I didn't want the entertainment center. So we ripped that out, and as we're ripping it out, we found water damage, which is what you see with all these lovely kind of in the forefront picture there. Oh, yes, and you've got it. Yeah, pretty, huh?
Yeah, so that was probably the wood that was attached to the ceiling of that sleeper part that's up above the driving portion. Is that correct?
Yes. All three sides had some amount of water damage, and you'll see there black mold. So we ripped it down to really the studs, to just almost to the very thin part that's on the fiberglass of the outdoor portion of it itself. So yeah, that taught me more than I ever wanted to know about mold and remediation and, hiring professionals to go out and take care of that. But, in the end, I'm hoping that I'm just going to love it, right? But it has been a lot of work.
So what is in the back of, if we're looking at the door right now, where I can imagine what's in the front, or, the bed's going to be up above the sleeping part. I get that. If you go in the door and go left, what's back there?
That's the kitchen and the bathroom. So, and my closet,
mm-hmm.
Which I have 3 closets of clothes right now at home. So, but what that is also showing me is that I don't wear most of it, right? So my closet, the bathroom, and the kitchen. And so I'm just updating those and making them cute, right? But for me, it's going to also be a lesson of minimalism and, taking just, 6 dishes and 3 pots and pans and 4 cups and, 20 pieces of clothes, right? So it's going to be very interesting. And then in the front, to the right is where the sofa is going to go. And then on the other side, I bought a really cute chair, and I'm going to have somebody construct a table that folds down, right? Because this is all about space in an RV, but then it will fold up and it will act as my desk and dining table. But I'm really excited about the couch that I found, which is something called this love sack.
Okay.
Look how small that door is, right? It's very narrow.
Yep.
So how are you going to fit a couch in there? And then I was like, I guess you could take the window off. And so this love sack is really cool. I'm going to be posting this on social media too. It comes in like 8 boxes, and it's a modular couch.
Mm-hmm.
And it fits together, and you can interchange it in all these different ways. It's going to be really cool. So I'm really excited for that. And it's very comfortable.
Very good. Yeah. And you need to have space you're going to be meeting people, and they're going to want to know who you are, and you're going to need to be able to invite them in and, have a spot to sit and, potentially have a meal together, or at least have a visit, an interview. And so you need space that's flexible enough to accommodate a couple of different purposes. And I've been thinking about that, but it sounds like you've jumped in and are making it work for you. So I really like that, because you're thinking about, well, what am I going to need to use my space for? Yeah.
Well, and you can also use the outdoor space, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah, the Power She background will act as, really great background for video. And, in this time of COVID, I can be doing partial interviews outside too. So. Right.
Well, very good. I think, is there anything else you want to talk about the RV specifically? I mean, you're almost ready to go. You have things you're still doing, and your intention is to get out of there in the next couple of weeks from the Seattle area where you've been living. You've taken your apartment or the place you've been living, and you've leased it out for a year. So your intentions is to just be gone and but have a place to return to.
Exactly. I wasn't ready to just get rid of everything and come back with, to nothing in next year. But who knows? I'm open to anything. Maybe I'll come across a part of the United States and decide that I want to, relocate and live there. Perhaps I'll come back and continue to live in Seattle, or maybe I'll be by city, and who knows? But I think that's really important, to just be really open to whatever might happen along the way.
So
Ooh,
I created this, but I don't know whether I'm going to end up with something
that is a big rig. That's long.
If I were to get something like that, my intention is to live for the next, multiple years in it. So I'm thinking I will travel to a place and spend anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, like just parked, and then go somewhere else. And so if I were to get something like this, that would be an ideal thing to have, like, getting from place to place and staying for an extended period of time. But then I would need like a rig, a car that's going with me behind it. So that's a possibility. So that would be one possibility. The other thing would be to have some kind of a tow rig where you actually, you have a truck and you tow something, and you leave that set up, kind of a semi-permanent place for a week or two at a time. In my case, I want to have a studio inside the room. So as the slide opens up, you end up with a flexible space that you can have some different chairs, and you can configure it so you can have a couple people, 2 or 3 people you're interviewing, or just one person, but have the lighting and the cameras all kind of like places mount so that you can, attach things and not have to figure out, each and every time. You talked about outside, and now you need equipment that you need to set up and do that sort of thing. So as I was thinking about all this, I thought, what, I need a production partner, to make this part happen. So I don't know what's going to happen in my particular case. I may end up with something like you have, that is just sort of, smaller and self-contained, or I could end up with something like this, but then it would be, I would need more partners involved to make it all happen. So I don't know what's going to happen, but this was what I threw together, and I just put some of the logos on it, just the idea, but I haven't had a professional person, and I probably would get a professional to help me at some point. This is just something.
But this is great, because this is you starting to manifest what it is that you want. And it doesn't have to, look exactly like this. I didn't know what mine was going to look like, but this is great. And, be open to all of them. I considered for a minute to, doing the truck route, getting a truck and pulling something. Mm-hmm. I just need to, the whole driving thing is intimidating to me. So I think once I get this year under my belt, who knows, maybe I'll go out for another year and get something bigger or get something different. But I think this is awesome. And I like the idea of mine is also, I'm going to kind of pen it as a mobile media lab, right? So yeah, I think this is cool. I think this is great. There's the more people, the better, who are going out and doing this kind of thing and just having conversations with each other, right? And people have such interesting stories. Even lots of times people don't think that they do, but I think you and I are inquisitive, right? So we like just hearing stories from little kids all the way up to, people our parents' age.
Tracy, I really appreciate your, kind of laying the foundation. We haven't talked too much about the power of she, just because I know you're going to come back and we'll get into that. I wanted to use this interview and this time together to kind of really talk about the, the rig and the, just the challenge of getting going. You have to be, the person who's subleasing your apartment or where you're at is going to be, coming in at the 1st of October. So as as it dawned on you as we were talking, it's like, oh my gosh, I only have a couple of weeks left to go, and less than 2 weeks. And so at some point we just have to make these things happen, and we have to just go for it. So you're going for it. I really like that. You're going to end up leaving Seattle sometime in October. It won't be on the 1st. You won't be ready then, but it'll be sometime thereafter. And then you're going to come across the country, but you have some interviews set up, or do you, or, tell us about that trip across the country.
Yes, I do have a couple of interviews set up so far. So again, the mission is to discover and share the stories of women, business owners, female founders across the country. I'll be launching the Power of She podcast as well. So I will also be interviewing cool men such as yourself on that podcast. But that will be sharing the stories of change makers and rabble rousers from across the country. But yeah, the interviews I have lined up so far, one is in Idaho with a really cool story of a young woman who she's in the business of flipping RVs. And her mother now works for her now, and she is sponsored by one of the larger RV companies in the country. So that's going to be an interesting story because there's a lot to her story. She didn't just all of a sudden start flipping RVs. And then, as I'm trying to figure out my route, right, because we have to figure out the route in terms of finding campgrounds that are open and the route to get to Buffalo, New York, eventually in the end. And I'm going through South Dakota. I don't know anybody in South Dakota, but I did some research and I found this really interesting woman who's a cattle rancher. That's just one thing she does. She's also created a nonprofit to give scholarships to rural South Dakota kids to continue their education. She's doing something with COVID, trying with her cattle and finding, she's in a, what do you call it? Not a study, but working with trying to find a cure for COVID-19. She's doing amazing things. And then I'm still in the midst of recruiting a couple of other women as I go to Buffalo. So that's really fun, just researching and discovering these amazing, women, and then just going for it and calling them and telling them my crazy idea and asking if they would be willing to be interviewed. And so far they've both said yes. So
yeah, it's not a I've decided, or I've discovered, and I've decided that it's not a hard sell to to tell somebody that you think they're interesting and you want to talk to them about it. Now, some people don't want to do that, and that's perfectly fine. Some people just aren't out, but lots of people are willing to share their story. And so as you want to be kind to people. You want to make them look good. We're not playing gotcha. We're not trying to, embarrass people. We're trying to, put a spotlight and show what makes them special and extraordinary. And in your case, promote the idea that women own businesses. I caught the connection that the cattle rancher might be your beef solution in the future.
She could be. I need to better understand all the products that she offers. But yeah, I actually do have a beef solution here in Washington State too, a brand called Three Sisters.
All right.
Yeah, I'm always open to new ones, right, and discovering and sharing new brands.
Let's just imagine that, you're out there, you're doing this, you're putting a spotlight on these people. And then there's other people who go, you know what, I want to support women-owned businesses. And so now you're helping their business grow, and you're helping other people discover how they can, through the power of the purse, how they can, through the dollars they spend, they can influence, what happens in our future. And I really like this idea. So I support it. I want to encourage everybody to follow Tracy on her website at thepowerofshe.com. And then also Instagram, the power of she is her Instagram handle. So one of those would be a great place to start. And then I'm sure that, you'll be sharing where the podcast is and where the broadcasts are, and your YouTube channel. And so there's lots of things to come. Any last, we're coming to the top of the hour. Any last things about it? Otherwise we're going to try to pick this story up as you're out on the road.
Just, send me well wishes, good karma, and I really hope that people are interested in this story and this journey. And if you are a woman-owned business, reach out to me and let me know about you. We also have a free directory that you can list your women-owned business on called thepowerofshedirectory.com. But thank you so much for having me. I look forward to being on your show again and sharing my journey and the ups and downs and the amazing stories and people that I meet along the way. So I look forward to reconnecting with you and your audience. And I wish you all the luck of continuing to manifest and dream about you getting out on the road too.
Yeah. I ended up getting lucky just in the sense that partnering with Spirituality Gone Wild, which was in alignment with the overall goals and objectives that I had in terms of sharing, the ordinary, extraordinary, and then with the reality that I wasn't going anywhere into short term, and it's like, oh, I could do this. And so then figuring out, how do I continue to do this once I'm on the road? And we already mentioned that internet connection is probably one of the most critical things. So I'm going to count on you to figure that out for me.
Okay. That's a big marching order. That's on my to-do list this week. Yeah.
Well, you'll just figure that out. I mean, there's ways to do it, but like, are there good ways and great ways? And, we'll just have to figure that out. That's probably going to be one of the challenges. If you have a landline or a hard connection to somewhere, it's always going to work better than if you're strictly going through the airwaves. But, yeah. Well, very good. Well, thank you. Again, I encourage everybody to follow Tracy, and Tracy will welcome you back here in the future. So thanks for joining us today, and wish you lots of luck, and we'll check in with you in, towards the end of October, probably, once you're out there on the road and you have a good internet connection from somewhere.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you very much. All righty. Well, thanks again to Tracy for joining us today. Her Instagram is the power of she with an underscore after the, and then thepowerofshe.com is her website. So go ahead and sign up to follow along with her journey, and it'll be an exciting journey, I'm sure. So, all right, folks. Well, that's it today. We're 1 minute past the hour, so I'll go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for joining in today, and we'll look forward to seeing Tracy back here in probably about a month. And I will see you tomorrow. We have Natalie Coleman, who's going to continue her story of recovery, and we're going to get into the good part now, the part where she became alive, and that's going to be the conversation tomorrow. Last Wednesday's interview, she talked about the dark night of the soul and the people who helped her, turn her life around. And now it's been 4 years, and what she's doing, and the fun part that comes from being free of an addiction. All righty. So that's tomorrow's show. And then on Wednesday, Michaela Lev, the founder and organizer of the G-Fest Goddess Festival, which is coming up in mid-October. She's going to tell us all about that. All righty, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.